Hillary Clinton back to making her media rounds to stay relevant, this time on, well, MSNBC, now known as PMS Now, where she mentioned that we need to stop demonizing each other, and in the same breath, proceeded to demonize Republicans. Let's take a listen.
We've got to stop demonizing each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I think most of that right now in our country's history is coming, from the right, coming from people who want to dominate. They want their point of view. The idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, is just doing such damage.
All right, those remarks sparking quite a bit of backlash from a lot of folks. Let's continue the conversation with the president and chief executive officer of Family Research Council, Tony Perkins. Tony, good to have you with us. Hatred of conservatives. It's not just rhetoric anymore. It's becoming menacing, even deadly. That's according to an op-ed that you wrote today and is live right now on Newsmax.com. Tell us about it.
I will, and I think, look, Hillary Clinton is one that's feeding that. I mean, she specifically pointed out white men, and you remember, Todd, a few years back it was the deplorables. Now she's focusing in on white men, but it's not just white men; it's all men. What stands in the way of the left are men of conviction with courage, and that's what we actually see the results of that in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That you see many millions of Americans paying respect to him because there's a longing for men of conviction who will speak up. And of course, you see the left responding with this type of rhetoric of saying, we need to get along, but at the same time, in the same breath, demonizing men who will stand up. Now, you're very familiar with this, Todd, but there's a pattern here on the left, and there's an organization that stands right in the center of it. It's the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Right.
And in the op-ed that's on Newsmax, I go back to the shooting that took place at the Family Research Council in 2012, shortly after Southern Poverty Law Center put our organization on their hate map. There was a shooting. One of our employees was severely wounded in that attack. Fortunately, he was stopped. He had 100 rounds of ammunition, but he was disabled and stopped. 2 years later, we had my friend Steve Scalise, who was the majority whip at the time. He, too, was put into a publication on the Hate Watch list of Southern Poverty Law Center. He was shot at the GOP baseball practice. And then, of course, Charlie Kirk, just months before he was assassinated, the Southern Poverty Law Center did an expose on him on their extremism and their hate watch list. There's a connection, Todd. It's not coincidence.
No. And that's a big problem. I'm wondering, is there anything that can be done to address this issue? Because it seems to me like the Southern Poverty Law Center is intentionally putting a target on the backs of very prominent conservatives in this country.
Look, we have a bunch of, we have some crazy people out there, as we're seeing with these acts of violence, and all they need is someone to affirm their hatred. And that's what the Southern Poverty Law Center has been doing. But it's not just that, Todd. They also are working with corporate America. Corporate America has blood on its hands. Apple, Amazon, these organizations, and many of the financial organizations, JP Chase, they have been a part of giving money to the Southern Poverty Law Center and using the Southern Poverty Law Center as an index to debank conservatives, to refuse to allow them to participate in certain programs like Amazon's Smile program, and they've been refused services based upon the Southern Poverty Law Center. So it's multifaceted, connected, I think, to Antifa in the whole mix. And I know the president is he's called for an all-of-government investigation into Antifa. You cannot look at this without looking at the Southern Poverty Law Center and their role in fomenting hatred and violence in this country against conservatives.
And Tony, you also have to look at the Democrat Party here. You had 58 Democrats in the House of Representatives that refused to condemn Charlie's assassination, and those same Democrats refused to condemn political acts of violence. What does that tell you about the Democrats?
Well, it exposes this. It goes back to Hillary Clinton, as you started, what she had to say about white men of a particular persuasion, particularly religious Christian men. That stands in the way of the agenda of the left. In order for them to gain power, they have to weaken manhood and masculinity, because that then fractures the family and it creates chaos in communities. That gives them leverage for power in bigger government. I know that may sound far-fetched, but we've seen this over and over the last several decades. That's why they cannot stand men of conviction with courage and masculinity. Men of conviction and courage have been in their crosshairs.
All right, we got to say this. Somebody's got to take a long, hard look at what's going on over at the Southern Poverty Law Center. Tony Perkins, thank you for joining us tonight.